So right now, at about 5:20, just a short period of time, 5:34 actually, Tony Buzbee rested on behalf of Attorney General Ken Paxton. They're up at the bench talking to, all the attorneys are up there talking to Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. We're waiting to see what's going to happen. We don't want to talk too much because we don't want to make sure we don't step on anything that's being said. I'm assuming they're trying to decide when they'll do closing arguments, but I mean, I would guess tomorrow morning, just based on.
Yeah, I'm sure it's scheduling is what's going on now. I'm going to assume that they're going to let everybody go home and come back in the morning and do closing arguments at 9. Normally, you wouldn't do it tonight.
But I bet Dan wants to push something tonight, and so they could wrap up by the end of the day tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, and it, I'm sure these senators want to go home this weekend.
Tanya, that tomorrow tomorrow or whenever it comes up, they have 16 votes calling 31 names one by one, and then if they vote to remove, then there is another set of 16 votes calling 31 names one by one. And I'm not sure about that second set, but they did. The House dropped the motion to combine the two, so we do have 2 votes if the first vote is to remove.
And each side has 1 hour for closing arguments. So you would have each side having their 1 hour. Then you would have deliberations, although we have no idea how long that could take. It could be short. It could
Remember,
be long.
there's videos and evidence they haven't seen.
They could decide to watch the videos, or they could just decide they've heard enough and they want to, make their decision. I don't know. And then of course you'll have, as Bud described, 16 votes.
Yay or nay.
Yay or nay. And then if he is sustained on one of them, you would have one or more of them. Then you would have the vote on whether or not to bar from public office in Texas.
Seeking future office.
Yeah.
I think Tony Buzbee rushed back. He saw how these assistant attorneys general were doing, both on the stand and as defense attorneys, and said, okay, I can count to 10. Let's go ahead and let's cut it off now. Tony Buzbee thinks he's counted 10.
He thinks he's got it.
He thinks he's got it.
Okay.
Well, I'm curious how the deliberations part of this is going to go. I mean, if any senator wants to go look at stuff, documents. Am I on?
Y'all just keep talking.
Oh, if anyone wants to look at documents, watch any of the videos, any of those kinds of things, it would seem that they would have the opportunity to go do that. I mean, I don't know what the rules would be. If one senator says, hey, you know what, I want to go watch some videos.
I don't know exactly what the rules are for jury deliberation, but since I have said all along that I thought the jury had their minds made up before the trial started, then I don't think that there's going to be a lot of reconsideration. There may be enough just to look like they gave it some thought. But I don't really think that there's going to be a lot of changing votes. I think they know, and they've known for a couple of days how they plan to vote. I think probably of the 31, I think probably 29 of them have known since the start how they plan to vote and haven't changed. I've said all along I thought it was in a vote or two. It's either they need 10 for Paxton to retain office, and I think Buzbee cut short all the defense. He left a lot of time on the clock, 5 or 6 hours, that they could have continued to present defense witnesses, and I think that he probably cut that short because he knows he can count to 10, and he knows that Ken Paxton will not be removed, that none of the 16 articles will be sustained.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I've felt it was going to probably fall that way too. I'm just, I just feel like, what if there's one person in there that says, hey, I want to go look at this evidence? Do they get to go do that? I don't know how this whole thing works. In a normal trial, that's what it would happen, but this isn't normal.
No, there's nothing about this situation.
There is nothing about the Texas Senate that's normal.
Well, no.
In fact, I'm pulling up the rules for the procedure here, because what I'm wondering is where there's an hour for rebuttals, and I'm wondering where that fits in.
Right.
Typically, I'm trying to pull that up. How would that normally fit in?
Well, so maybe an hour closing on one side, an hour closing on the other side. And then 30 minutes rebuttal, 30 minutes rebuttal.
Yeah, I'm
No,
trying to get to
no,
that.
that can't be
No,
right.
it said an hour. So
No,
rebuttal
so-
wouldn't be part of the
No.
testimony. That's just
No, rebuttal. So in a criminal closing argument, state goes first, then the defense, and the state can reserve some of their time to come after the defense. So, but then you wouldn't give one side 2 hours and the other side 1 hour.
okay. So I've
I
got the
don't know.
rules up. Okay, so only one person per side can question a witness, and only one person per side may cross-examine.
Okay.
5, rebuttal evidence, 60 minutes per side. Final argument, 60 minutes per side.
Okay, so that means that the state will probably do a portion of it to begin with, or they could not. They could do nothing. Let the defense do their hour, and
You
then
can
they
still
do a
stand.
full
I
hour,
just need a little quiet. Both parties come back.
and then do a full hour, or they could break it up. They could do like 30 minutes, and then save 30 minutes.
Haven't
So-
we already had the rebuttal?
Yeah,
I'm
I don't think
confused
it's-
about this.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
no, I mean, according to what, I pulled up the rules.
Yeah,
According to the
well,
rules, it says rebuttal evidence,
think the
60,
rebuttal
is
60
during
minutes per
testimony.
side.
There's
So,
a separate clock.
Well,
that was-
no, the state, excuse me, the state can, normally in a trial, once the defense rests, could call rebuttal witnesses. Maybe that's what
Yes.
it's talking about.
Okay.
We may be getting premature here. It could be they have another witness and we don't know about it.
yeah, we're working to get Teresa Woodard from Austin.
We're assuming
live in a
everybody's
minute.
closing, but that may not be what's happening here. If the state wants to call, I keep calling it the state, but if the
The House.
if the House wants to call rebuttal witness, then they could do that.
Yeah, because it does say rebuttal evidence, 60 minutes per side. So obviously there's still discussion here. So we could theoretically see the House call somebody,
They could.
and then the defense. So this could,
That could and it doesn't happen a lot in criminal trials, but it does happen. State can call rebuttal
or they
witnesses.
could both decide we've done enough
And we're just going to do closing
and
arguments.
we're going to do closings. So that,
So we're just waiting for them to tell us what the schedule is going to be.
yeah, that's
I don't
kind
know
of.
why it's such an
Does
issue.
it strike you as odd what's happening now?
No, because a lot of times when one side rests, we all get together and figure out what we're doing next.
It doesn't
So-
strike me as odd because it's 10 till 6, and
No, everybody
everybody's
wants to go
asking,
home.
do we stay or do we go?
No. Should
Well,
I
then-
stay or should I go now?
Exactly.
Well, and if there's
could be
rebuttal,
playing
if
that
there's going to
song
be
right now in the
rebuttal
background.
evidence and you don't do it tonight, then
drags out tomorrow.
Then you're into Saturday, because then you've got
That's
rebuttal
true.
evidence in the morning, closings.
Is he about to do something?
Well, he could say we're going to stay here Friday as long as we need to. He could say that.
That'll make everyone happy.
Okay, he's calling. I see Rusty back up there. Busby's back up there.
Dick DeGuerin's
There's
back
Dick
up there.
DeGuerin. There's Therese Booth. Chris Hilton's approaching. Yeah, they're all kind of gathered around there. So, while we're waiting here, Deandra, how effective do you think? I mean, walk me through what you thought was good about the defense witnesses, and what you thought wasn't good.
The last guy was it was really long, and I wish that wasn't what they closed on. Wish they'd kind of had a stronger witness to close the case out, because he was sort of long and boring. I would have put him on first. Probably.
You would put who on first?
This Dorfman,
Judge Dorfman.
Judge Dorfman, probably. Weren't we saying that his dad used to own?
The filling station.
station.
That's what somebody.
Yeah, that's
Said.
kind
He's
of
a
cool in
Dallas guy. I mean, that's what you say, he's a Dallas guy.
Well, he said he was from Dallas, so yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of cool. That was a great bar back in the day. But
He seemed more polished.
He was.
He didn't seem like one of the raw rookies that we've seen
Yes.
from both sides working in the AG's office.
Yes. I thought the first witness did a good job. I might have ended with him.
Okay, so we've got Teresa Woodard,
We getting some word.
our reporter in Austin. Teresa, thank you for joining us. What are you hearing?
Absolutely. Well, we're sort of playing waiting game that I'm sure you guys are back at the station. Clearly, there's just a huddle going on up at the dais where Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who, of course, as we know by now, is acting as the judge in this case, is meeting with both sides. Guesses are that he's trying to formulate exactly what the next steps are going to be. We know that since the defense has rested, up next would be an hour of rebuttal for each side. And so the prosecution would get an hour and the defense would get an hour for rebuttals, and that would come before closing arguments. The big question is exactly, is that going to happen now as we speak? Are they going to just try to power through and go as long as they can tonight and get as far as they can into this thing? Or are they going to say, you know, tired, it's been a long day, let's take a break and come back and start over fresh tomorrow? It's anybody's guess right now as to exactly what's going to happen next. But, you know, the day, I think, can just be summed up by saying it was the defense's turn to try to poke holes in the prosecution, to plant seeds of reasonable doubt. And the way they tried to do that was by using current employees of the Office of Attorney General. They put 4 current employees on the stand today and tried to sort of pick apart all of the claims that the prosecution. And I don't know. Cross-examination seemed to be a little rough for some of those witnesses. I'm sure you guys felt the same way watching it back there.
Yeah, I thought in particular the cross-examination of the one witness where they went through the timeline of
yes,
what happened.
The HR director, Henry De La Garza. Yeah, he certainly could not dispute the timeline, which was, you know, that came moments after. I was just, in fact, looking back on some of that testimony. It was about 15 minutes after he told the defense attorneys, we had reason to let these people go. It was not retaliatory. About 15 minutes later, the prosecutor laid out that timeline and said, on October 2nd, this happened. On November 1st, this happened, and there's no disputing that.
It's a powerful timeline, no matter how you look at
yes.
it.
Yes.
So each side has an hour for rebuttal. What's your understanding of do we have much of a sense of how that would work?
From what I understand, they can call witnesses. And so, you know, you may wonder if, you remember yesterday there was that accidental arrest by Rusty Hardin that came in the middle of a witness. And so I don't know if that witness would be called back for either side to maybe ask a few more questions. The defense didn't call him today. And so, you know, I don't know if that is what would happen in the course of those hours, or if they would just use it to bring somebody back to clarify something. It remains to be seen, really. I don't know exactly how that 1 hour is going to be used as rebuttal. And in closing arguments, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a bit since I've read the rules specifically. I believe each side has an hour for closing as well.
They do. I had to pull the rules up just now because I wanted to make sure I understood the rebuttal thing, because I was not clear on the rebuttal, and that's how, so each side has 60 minutes per side. And the rules say if there is a conviction, 15 minutes per side on the issue of disqualification to hold future offices, because they give these, you know, you've read the rules more than I have, but the timelines on everything. Were we expecting Busby to rest at this point, or did it seem like it came?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that many of the people I've spoken with, just people who are just sort of watching this case, they did expect for something to come to a head today in order for, I think the common thinking is they want this to wrap up before the weekend. And so, you know, it's maybe not surprising that the defense rested. I think only 4 witnesses that they called to the stand. But it's 5:30 on a Thursday evening, and I think everybody's getting a little tired. So, you know, you can take it for what it's worth. Maybe the defense said, we've done enough. Yeah, I second that. I'm a little tired too.
It has been, Teresa, it has been a long week. Last week was a long week. This week's a long week, and it's not over with yet. And it's looking like, you know, we might go into Saturday. It's really hard to call. And Patrick has made it very clear that this will keep going until it's over with. Either way. So. Yeah,
I think that's the one thing we do know, is that they're not going to break for the weekend. We're going to continue on until there is an outcome.
Okay. Well, Teresa, thank you so much, and we appreciate you coming on and talking to us.
Absolutely. I'll keep you guys posted, but I know you're watching the stream just as I am, so we'll
Absolutely.
probably know at the same time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Teresa.
All right.
All right,
Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, I guess we're going to wait to see if we're going to have rebuttal evidence tonight, or if they're going to regroup and start back in the morning. One part of me thinks that I could see Patrick saying, let's just
Work it.
let's just work it and get this done, because if you don't do rebuttal tonight, then you ensure that you go into Saturday. I don't see how you don't.
Well, I'm going to need a Dr. Pepper if we're going to have any more witnesses. Lord have
Well, I
mercy.
don't know. I mean, and they might decide, both sides might decide we don't need to do rebuttal. Like, we've done enough, and we're gonna wrap it up.
She had a good point. If there was a witness they were going to call that they didn't get to call because of the accidental arrest, you could call them now.
They could.
I think he's also very conscious of his senators, and he wants to be sure that he doesn't push them any further than they want to be pushed. He wants to be demanding, but also he does not want to upset the members of the Senate and keep them so late that they're exhausted.
Yeah, and I mean, it's they've all been there since 9 o'clock this morning, or they've probably presumably been there before that, but that's when they started, the session started this morning, and of course it's now almost 6 o'clock, and it's a long day sitting there listening, and the testimony today has not been exactly riveting.
No.
I mean, there's been
No.
moments where it was interesting, but it punctuated by.
This morning was more interesting. This afternoon, it's kind of dragged.
I think the most important thing we'd say is that it hasn't pushed the needle any way.
No.
It hasn't picked up any more votes for the defense, and it probably hasn't lost them any.
Well, isn't one of the impeachment articles about firing the whistleblowers?
Yes,
retaliation?
whether it was inappropriate and whether.
They seem to spend a lot of time on that today.
I thought there was some pretty good evidence today about that. I mean, I don't know how you come out the other way, but to me, it's all going to be political. It's
So.
going to be political decisions, and
Well,
it's not a
this
court
whole
of law.
well, this whole situation is
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, they're
while
go-
it has the trappings of a criminal/civil trial, it is ultimately a political proceeding.
There are going to be 10 Republicans who go along with the idea of, well, they're whistleblowers, get rid of them. And so, that's the question. I mean, about half the Senate is lawyers. Some of them may see the flaws in the argument, but will they vote that way? Will they be able to respond to their district if they vote that way? They have to have 10 Republicans who go along.
And we haven't talked about it yet, but the head of the party, the Texas Republican Party, sent out a tweet today, right?
It set out several tweets, but they set out a fundraising tweet saying, stand up to the wrongful impeachment of Ken Paxton. He even sent out one tweet early in the day, if I saw this right, that explained that the judge could be replaced with a motion from the floor. And so the state Republican Party, which really has very little clout and is not able to raise much money and doesn't have much impact with donors, has had quite a bit to say about this trial on the side of Attorney General Ken Paxton.
What does that tell you, though?
Well, I mean, this is no surprise. I mean, the state party leader, Matt Rinaldi, and the state executive committee have been firmly arguing Paxton's case all along and defending Paxton. The Paxton is their guy, and Matt Rinaldi is from the camp that supported either Allen West or Don Huffines for governor, and that was the far right camp. These are the major funders of what's left of that faction of the party. You have the Ferris Wilks and Cisco. You have Tim Dunn in Midland. They pour millions of dollars into conservative religious causes in the party, and so that's where the only money that's left for some of the state officials comes from. And so that's kind of the flag they fly.
Well, and I've got on my other screen here, I've got the Senate feed up. That's what we're looking at right now is actually the K-View feed. But the Senate feed, you can still see the various the prosecution and the defense up at the dais talking to Dan Patrick, presumably trying to hash out how this is going to go.
Well, now I think
what to
it's
do
just,
when.
it's not all of them up there. I think it's Busby and
Well, there's
Hardin.
Jay, can you put up the other view? Yeah, see, this is the other view. You can see them all up there. There's a
I'm
whole
sure the
crowd of them.
senators are all like, hey, we getting to go home soon?
And I don't know, I couldn't hear Teresa, so I don't know if she addressed this, but we do have 4 articles of impeachment that were held in abeyance for this trial. And so
No one's mentioned them.
And so even if the Senate dismisses these articles, denies these articles, he's still impeached on those other 4 articles. Presumably there would be a motion to dismiss those other articles, but that would require another motion at the end of the trial.
Yeah, I don't know.
And those are the ones all related to criminal prosecution.
The securities case that is in court in Houston now.
But when we were talking earlier, Deandra, do you still feel the way you felt earlier, that they could have quit earlier, that they should have kind of not presented as many of these witnesses? Or what's your feeling on what you saw in terms of these defense witnesses?
Starting out this morning, I kind of thought that this defense might call no witnesses and just rest this morning and
So our
probably
guy's
go in-
innocent
Our
and-
guy, y'all didn't prove it, and put on no one. The first guy they put on, I mean, he seemed like a nice enough guy. I don't know that he made a lot of headway, and I don't think the second guy helped them. I think when he got crossed, going through all the timeline of the filing with the FBI and all that kind of stuff, I just don't think that was really good for the defense. So I still think I would have just sat down and not put anybody on.
I really think, and I'm just speculating here, but I think these attorneys on loan from the Attorney General's office, who were state employees, said, let us put on our case, let us put on our case. And at some point, Tony Busby and his staff came back in and said, hey, let's go ahead and rest. Y'all are not doing that great.
Well, the other thing is, remember, you've got people that are on leave from the AG's office cross-examining their, oh, thank you, I got my Dr. Pepper, cross-examining their colleagues.
That's a weird situation.
It's very weird. I mean, they're cross-examining their colleagues. They're probably their friends, are these guys that they called, maybe even their supervisors.
Well, and you've got a memo with the whole letterhead thing. You've got a memo written by Chris Hilton that's part of the evidence in the case. I don't know. It's just the whole thing's kind of weird, because Chris Hilton was pretty involved in his job at the AG's office handling the whistleblower lawsuit.
What's also kind of funny to me on the letterhead thing is you've got all these AG people on leave working on the defense team. They don't probably know that the letterhead thing was bogus, and they were still going along with that argument. They had to know that.
And and the explanation is early in the trial, they were challenging the whistleblowers, saying, why doesn't this letterhead have Ken Paxton's name on it? Were you trying to go around behind his back? Or is this part of the mutiny? But now the defense shows the same thing.
Yeah, that it's just, they just have multiple letterheads in the office, which was what I forget who was with us that, one of those days, and that was exactly what they were saying. One of the attorneys I had with me was just saying, well, offices frequently have multiple letterheads. That's not all that unusual.
Right.
In a big office. If Ken Paxton sends the letter, of course he's going to have a letterhead with his name on it. If it's an underling sending it, they may not have his name on it, because that's not that unusual in a large organization
to have
multiple
versions.
letterheads.
Yeah, multiple versions of your letterhead pre-printed. You buy them in bulk. They're probably sitting in some kind of drawer or filing system, and everyone has access to it. And
I mean, they probably even
just
have
nothing.
like a policy on when you use what letterhead. It wouldn't shock me if there's not a policy.
Well, obviously, we saw today they use the other letterhead
Yeah,
without
that
his
was
name on
that
it.
was a pretty good moment when Dutco said, this guy right here. Oh, he's sitting over there. Oh, Ken Paxton's name's not on that letterhead.
And I really liked was it Dutco?
Yeah, Dutco.
I really liked him. He was very good. I thought he was very effective.
The people in the chat were calling him Jimmy Stewart.
He was very Jimmy Stewart-like.
He was. Then they were calling him Jimmy
Yes.
Stewart.
Mr. Smith goes to Washington.
Yes,
Yeah, I can totally see that.
Even the suit kind of had that it did. It was like they were calling him Jimmy Stewart.
Well, he was so tall, he was really far away from the microphone, so it was a little bit harder to hear him. He would need to lean over, I guess, to really get in that microphone. He wasn't very loud.
No, but he was really effective.
He was very good. Really impressed. He had a good style about him. So yeah, I liked him. Eric and Stacy didn't get enough time today.
No, but we
Needed
talked
more
about
Eric
Jay
and
quite a bit.
Stacy. Yeah,
We got
needed.
Jay. So for you folks that may be jumping in and out of the stream, where things stand right now is the Tony Busby, the lead defense attorney, rested at 5:34 p.m. The attorneys for both sides have been up there at the dais talking to Dan Patrick, presumably discussing scheduling. We know based on the rules that each side has 1 hour for rebuttal evidence. Now, they may decide not to use it.
Yep.
So that's what we don't know, and it could be that they decide they are going to use it, and we're going to do it tonight. And then they have beyond that, there's 1 hour for each side for closing arguments, and then deliberations, and then voting. Now, that's the gist of where we stand. But we don't know exactly what they're deciding. I mean, again, it's got to be a scheduling issue. What are we going to do? Are we going to do rebuttal? Or are we going to do it tonight?
Well,
or are we going to not do it at all?
also, do they have, if they were going to call a witness, and I mean the state, the House, do they have them there?
Well, that's the other issue.
I mean, they may.
I remember
they may
we
not
have that
be
other
there.
issue of the. I mean, does the 24-hour rule apply to rebuttal evidence?
Normally, it would not in rebuttal, but it could. There could be rules in this.
You know,
like I said, this
I
is some
don't-
sort of
I'd have
cobbled together proceeding with all
I mean,
kinds of rules.
I'm looking at the rules, and I don't know exactly where the 24-hour thing that particular rule comes in.
What's the description of deliberation, or does the jury even go back into the?
The deliberations are done in the Senate chambers, and it's closed off from
the media.
yeah,
so no
from everybody.
cameras?
Nobody can be in there. Nobody can be in the Senate chamber.
Okay.
And deliberations is supposed to mean they all can talk to each other about it.
Right.
Right.
Right. And so
And play videos if they want.
they entered those into evidence. They could play those videos if they wanted to. If they decided that was something, there's a couple of video interviews of Nate Paul. One of them's a little over an hour, and one of them's like an hour and 45 minutes. So I think it's close to, between the two interviews, it's close to 3 hours of video, and then there's a couple of audio recordings of Kamek going to talk to the banks. I don't know if those got introduced into evidence or not. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Rule 8, closed court deliberation. This is according to the Senate rules. The sessions of the court of impeachment are to be open. Deliberations of the court are to be closed. The court may meet in closed session, but no formal action may be taken in a closed session. Deliberations may not occur until conclusion of all final arguments. Only members of the court are permitted in deliberations. Any vote shall be in open court without debate or comment. After final judgment, a member of the court may provide a written statement on their vote within 72 hours to the clerk of the court, which will become part of the official record and entered into the journal. So I guess once the vote's taken, they could also enter some kind of written statement if they so choose.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's
I'm voting this way, but I'm giving a disclaimer.
exactly.
Can you imagine?
Or maybe I voted this way, and this is why I voted that way.
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
I'm voting this way, and this is why. This is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So I don't
that's
know.
interesting.
It's all very interesting.
And a viewer asked about why I'm saying count to 10. If Angela Paxton's abstaining, isn't that, doesn't that mean there are only 30 votes and 2/3 would be 20?
No, she
But
counts in
she
the number.
still counts in the number. So there are 31 senators. She counts in the number. It
she
takes
can-
2/3. It takes 21 to sustain an article of impeachment. And so if there are 10 votes to dismiss an article of impeachment, then it fails.
Yeah, we'll see.
she's going to be there for deliberations but not vote. Is that your understanding?
She has been barred from, I think she's barred from deliberation.
Okay.
The Constitution says she has to be in the chamber during the trial, but I think she's barred from deliberation.
Because she's not a juror,
Right,
because she can't vote.
right.
So she shouldn't be there during deliberations.
They're just following the Constitution, which says that all members of the Senate must be present during the trial.
I mean, because you do have this extraordinary situation where the Attorney General's wife, Senator Angela Paxton, of course, is a member of the Senate, and thus, as a result, that's why she's in the Senate and counted as part of that 31, even though she cannot vote on the impeachment. Yeah, I'm reading the rules, trying to. I mean, presumably, she would not be in the deliberations since she is not a juror. But
I'm surprised Dan Patrick hasn't given an update. You know, he's been giving updates to the senators.
On the time and
hang on, we're about to tell y'all something. He hasn't done that.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
He's an old TV sportscaster. He's used to saying,
Oh, is that right?
We'll be right back. Yeah.
Is that true?
Yes.
Oh,
wasn't he a sports?
interesting.
He was the
Okay.
TV sports anchor in Houston. He was famous for shaving his chest and painting it Oilers blue during the Oilers' heyday and all sorts of
I like his style.
sportscaster stunts.
He has a good
remember-
voice. I can hear that. I can see that.
Well, and of course, I grew up in the Houston area, so I remember the Oilers when they were there. You know, so whole different era than today. They ran off to Nashville.
We talk about all the people we haven't seen during this trial. We never saw Laura Olson.
Well,
We're
we
not-
saw her.
Well,
We
we
didn't hear
saw her.
from her.
We saw her, but
We
we're not
saw
gonna-
her quite a bit, but we saw her coming and leaving. Is all we saw. We didn't see all these people that Tony Busby brought up in his opening statement as all the boogeymen involved in the trial. We never saw, Dick Weekley, Karl Rove, George P. Bush, all the people
Nate Paul.
that he said were, Nate Paul. We never saw Nate Paul.
Well, I mean, Nate Paul could claim the 5th because he's under federal indictment right now.
Well, what about the contractor?
They said earlier that the contractor. This might have been yesterday. They said the contract. No, that was yesterday. They said the contractor had refused to testify.
Well, he doesn't have a choice if he gets a subpoena.
And
See,
of
there,
course,
you don't get to just say, you know what, I just think I'll tap out.
and of course, we only saw Ken Paxton one time. We saw him at the beginning of the trial, and we have not seen him since. So
Well, he's off to talk to Tucker, isn't he?
He's-
and the reference there is that he tweeted that he's going to Maine next week to do a show with Tucker Carlson, which apparently means that he won't be at work next week. So we'll see whether he's back on the state payroll next week.
Well, based on what you're saying, you feel like he's going to be back on the state payroll.
I feel like he'll be back on the state payroll, but it'll be up to a vote of the House, of the Senate, on whether to continue with those other 4 articles of impeachment or dismiss them, or continue to hold them in abeyance pending the outcome of the court case in Houston. So, if they hold them in abeyance, then he would continue to be suspended. If they dismiss them by a majority vote, then he would be eligible to return as Attorney General.
Do they have a dress code in the Senate?
They do, and it's been pretty loose in this trial.
Just curious. I mean, everybody looks pretty dressed up to me. I was just
Seen-
wondering if there's a dress code.
I've seen some people, well, yes, you have to wear coat, and gentlemen have to wear coat and tie, but I mean, I've seen some odd-looking sweaters and attire around the lieutenant governor's dais.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
really?
You can see some pretty animated discussion up there at the dais.
I think the jury may be deliberating. They may be deliberating where they're going to dinner. But
Well, don't we have a couple of restaurants we could send them off to?
Well, Polvos.
Yes, Polvos. I'm
Very
going
relaxed.
next time I'm in
That's
Austin.
there, and of course Starbucks.
I'm going to go to Starbucks.
repeated,
I'm going
but
on the
be
tour.
sure you have a ride back if you go to Starbucks.
I'm going to take an Uber.
Clearly,
Were there ever any Uber records?
No.
They
no,
never.
That-
int-
nothing
Uber
happened?
is something else we never saw in this trial.
You're right.
There were supposed to be some Uber records.
Uber, fake names, fake accounts on Uber, which, as was pointed out by Ken Paxton's team, there's nothing illegal about having a fake Uber account, but that never came up in the course of this trial.
Well, a lot of celebrities have those kinds of things. Like they'll check into a hotel, they use fake names, if fake names on Uber accounts. So to stay out of the public eye, that's really not unusual.
Well, and it may have been that had we heard from Laura Olson that we would have heard about the Uber
Oh,
records.
maybe they were gonna get that in
But
with
they
her.
didn't. But they didn't come in this. And well, at least not in this part. I mean, could it somehow come in rebuttal? But I don't see why it would come in at this point. I mean,
I don't think so.
I don't see any
I don't see
particular
where it-
reason
I don't
for
see where it
that.
furthers any of the 16 articles.
Because at this point, the 16 articles really are hinging on who do you believe? Do you believe the whistleblowers or do you believe Ken Paxton's side, right? Or does it matter who you believe?
I think you probably have senators that are more interested in what their constituents believe. Because that's, that's who they
The
answer
senators from the beginning have been more interested in what Dan Patrick believes because they need Dan Patrick to pass bills. They're taking very widely divergent positions. Some of them are not voting with people they normally vote with. They seem to be voting from deeply held conscience. Those who are backed by the West Texas financiers seem to be holding together pretty well. But in the end, they all have to please Lieutenant Governor Paxton and Patrick, and they will. And if he has a preference, they'll try to follow that. I think that Dan Patrick has
think
gone
they've
through
made a
this trial
decision.
without showing too much partiality, and I think
I do too. I think he's done a good job.
No, he
And-
has.
and
I
I-
think he's done a very good job. I think
He
we're
has a
gonna
good
s-
demeanor.
I think that
I've been very impressed.
He's very
with
pleasant. I
Dan
wish all the
Patrick.
judges I appeared in front of had as pleasant a demeanor in
It
court.
looks like we're gonna
Some of them are
see-
not so nice.
it says we're bringing
Isn't that
everybody
isn't
back.
that Birdwell right there up there at the front?
Yes, that's Senator Birdwell
And
from Granbury.
Brian Birdwell was the
Parties, I need
we go.
someone from
9/11
each side
survivor
to
who
announce that
chaired the
you're
committee that wrote the rules.
going to have closing arguments in the morning.
That's
Before
it.
I
Closing
adjourn
arguments
for
in
the
the
day.
morning.